For the past decade, the term ESG has been plastered everywhere, on corporate reports, marketing materials, and even the packaging of the products you buy. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's the idea that businesses should not only focus on profits, but also consider their impact on the planet and society. In theory, it sounds great, right? Big companies working to reduce their carbon footprint, ensuring fair labor practices, and promoting transparency in how they're governed. It's a win-win for everyone. But here's the catch. What if it's not all as pure as it seems? What if the big ESG movement is less about saving the planet and more about boosting profits? Could the whole thing be a scam in disguise? It's a question many are now asking. Is ESG really changing the world? Or is it just a clever way for companies to cash in? The rise of ESG, a new era of corporate responsibility. The rise of ESG can be traced back to the early 2000s when people started to ask more questions about where their money was going. They wanted to know whether their investments were contributing to environmental destruction, labor exploitation, or unethical corporate governance. The idea was simple. Companies that treated their workers poorly, polluted the environment, or lacked transparency were bad for business in the long run. Enter ESG, a movement that promised to hold companies accountable by evaluating their performance across three major categories. Environmental: how do they impact the planet? Are they reducing waste, emissions, and pollution? Social: how do they treat their employees? Are they supporting communities, providing fair wages, and promoting diversity and inclusion? Governance: how transparent and ethical are their business practices? Are executives paid too much? Are they committed to anti-corruption policies? For consumers, it seemed like the perfect solution: buy products from companies that are aligned with their values. For investors, it provided a way to put money into companies that wouldn't just make them rich, but would also make the world a better place. The idea was that if a company was responsible, it would perform well financially in the long run. The rise of companies like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, and Tesla, all of which promoted ESG values, made the concept seem like a revolutionary way to do business. For a while, it seemed like ESG was the future of capitalism, a world where businesses cared about more than just the bottom line. The ESG trend turns into a business opportunity. Here's where things start to get a little murky. While many companies jumped on the ESG bandwagon, some of them weren't exactly walking the walk. Instead, they were talking the talk, promoting their ESG credentials without making real changes behind the scenes. Take big oil companies, for example. Over the past decade, ExxonMobil, Shell, and other fossil fuel giants have been promoting their green initiatives. They advertise investments in renewable energy, carbon capture technologies, and carbon offset programs. At the same time, they continue to extract and sell fossil fuels, the very thing contributing to climate change. These companies have been quick to jump on the ESG train because they know it sells. They want consumers to see them as part of the solution, not the problem. Then there's the financial sector. Banks and investment firms have made ESG a central part of their marketing, claiming they're only investing in companies that meet these social and environmental standards. But behind closed doors, they're still pouring billions of dollars into industries that are destroying the planet, like fossil fuels, deforestation, and mining. The problem is that many companies are using ESG as a marketing tool, rather than a genuine framework for change. The term greenwashing has become a common term to describe companies that pretend to be more sustainable than they really are. They put a few eco-friendly labels on their products or announce a few small initiatives, but their core business practices stay the same. Greenwashing is a huge problem. In fact, many companies are now spending more on advertising their ESG initiatives than actually making real changes. This has led to the rise of what some critics call virtue signaling. Companies trying to appear woke without making substantial efforts to fix the real issues. The truth behind ESG metrics: are they really transparent? If you think the ESG metrics are foolproof, think again. The biggest problem with the ESG movement is the lack of standardization. There are no universal rules about what constitutes good ESG performance. Different organizations have created different scoring systems, and they often weigh different factors in different ways. For example, one ESG rating agency might give a company a high score for environmental practices, But that same company could receive a lower score for social issues, like labor practices or diversity. But without standardized metrics, it's almost impossible for consumers or investors to make informed decisions. One rating agency might give a company a sustainable rating, while another could give it a needs improvement label. This lack of transparency can make it easy for companies to manipulate their ESG scores. If a company spends a lot of money on corporate social responsibility programs, think charity donations, community outreach, etc., they can sometimes raise their ESG score without addressing the root causes of environmental or social harm. So, while the company might look great on paper, its real-world impact could be a different story. This is where the corporate world has found a way to game the system. ESG ratings can be bought, manipulated, or simply cherry-picked to make a company look better than it actually is. The system is riddled with loopholes that allow companies to score well without making any serious changes. Are consumers falling for the ESG trap? Now here's the kicker. Consumers are starting to realize they're being sold a lie, and it's happening fast. When companies slap an ESG-friendly label on their products, many customers believe they're supporting companies that genuinely care about the environment or social justice. But more often than not, they're just buying into a marketing scheme designed to boost the company's profits. A prime example of this is fast fashion. Brands like H&M and Zara claim to have sustainable practices, like using recycled materials and offering eco-friendly collections. But behind the scenes, these companies are still responsible for massive waste, poor labor practices, and harmful environmental impacts. They're selling sustainability as a product, and consumers are buying it, both literally and figuratively. And then there's the issue of greenwashing in other industries. For example, when a large tech company markets its new product as carbon neutral, it's easy to feel good about the purchase. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that their carbon neutrality might only apply to a small portion of their operations, while their overall environmental footprint remains massive. Is ESG good for business? At the end of the day, does ESG even matter for businesses? Well, it depends on how you define good for business. If a company's goal is to look good and improve its brand image, ESG initiatives can certainly help. Studies show that consumers, especially younger generations, are more likely to buy from brands that promote sustainability and social responsibility. However, if we're talking about long-term growth, real change is needed. The problem is, real change is expensive, and many companies aren't willing to fully commit. They're more focused on short-term profits and quick fixes that will boost their ESG score without addressing the deep-rooted issues that are harming the environment and society. But there are exceptions. Some companies, like Patagonia, have genuinely embedded sustainability into their business model, proving that it is possible to make a real difference while still being profitable. But these companies are the exception, not the rule. Conclusion: the ESG con. So, is ESG really about saving the planet, or is it just a clever marketing tool? The truth is, it's a bit of both. While there are undoubtedly companies that are making real strides in improving their environmental, social, and governance practices, there are just as many who are simply cashing in on the ESG trend. The key takeaway here is that consumers and investors need to be cautious. ESG is a powerful idea, but it's often used in ways that can mislead or deceive. It's up to us to look beyond the labels, demand more transparency, and push companies to actually walk the walk when it comes to making a positive impact on the world. Until then, ESG might just remain another way for companies to make money by appealing to our better nature without ever truly making a difference.